Ukraine shoots down 108 of 160 Russian drones. December 19th, 2025. I mean, that is the kind of headline that just stops you in your tracks, and it demands that we analyze what is actually going on. So, subscribe to Defense Reports. It's your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. And join me with Arya in the latest Deep Dive by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today, we are going to cover that massive sustained wave of drones that hit Ukraine just hours ago.
Yeah, it was the largest single-day strike package we've seen in a long, long time.
So what's our mission today? What are we trying to unpack here?
Our mission is to really analyze this December 19th attack. We're going to use the numbers to understand Ukraine's strategic defensive innovations, and really critically, why Russia is escalating to this scale. Call it pulse saturation.
Pulse saturation, okay.
Yeah, and we'll unpack this paradox. Why getting a record number of successful neutralizations, 108 targets, is actually, a sign of huge strategic strain, not some clear-cut victory.
And just to give you a sense of where we're going with this deep dive, we're pulling back the curtain on the technology. We'll expose some really exotic new decoy drones Russia's using.
And how they're trying to achieve what we call kinetic exhaustion.
Right, and then we'll flip it and explain how Ukraine is fighting back by producing almost 1,000 interceptor drones per day.
It's an incredible number. And we'll also get into the shocking strategic operation that probably forced Russia to launch these waves in the first place.
Okay, let's start with the hard numbers. The Ukrainian Air Force released them, and the scale is, staggering. 160 strike drones launched.
And that's a mix. That's your standard Shahed and Gerbera types, but a lot of others in there too.
And this wasn't just a quick hit, was it?
No, not at all. This was a sustained assault. We're talking 13 and a half hours. It started on the evening of December 18th. And just kept going right through to the morning of the 19th.
Kind of the key defensive number.
108. 108 enemy UAVs were neutralized. And that figure includes drones that were shot down and ones that were electronically suppressed.
So if you do the math, 108 out of 160, that's a 67.5% neutralization rate.
It is, which sounds good on paper.
It sounds phenomenal, actually. But you mentioned something before we started, that this number, 108, keeps coming up. What's the deal with that?
This is the real aha moment when you're analyzing this. The number 108 appears again and again as Ukraine's maximum sustainable processing bandwidth for these drone waves.
You mean it's their limit?
It suggests a standardized limit, yeah. It's the maximum number of targets. It's the integrated air defense system, their IADs, can reliably track, prioritize, and, eliminate in one of these high-intensity waves.
So 108 is the firewall's capacity, basically.
Precisely. We see it all through 2025. On July 14th, 136 drones launched, 108 neutralized. That's an 80% efficiency rate.
Okay.
November 6th, 135 launched, and again, 108 neutralized, almost 80% again. Russia knows this benchmark now. They've been testing it.
Which means this new wave was specifically designed to breach that firewall. They sent 160 knowing that if Ukraine hit their max of 108, at least 52 were going to get through.
And that is the brutal logic of saturation warfare. Despite a record number of kills, 108 is an incredible number. The sheer volume was just too high. The efficiency dropped, and the outcome was grim. 47 of those drones hit their targets at 23 different locations.
So the saturation strategy, it worked.
It did. And you have to remember, this wasn't even the only attack that day.
Right, there was an earlier wave.
A morning wave.
Yeah.
82 drones. So you have this back-to-back targeting. That's what we mean by pulse saturation.
So you hit them, and then before they can even recover, you hit them again.
Exactly. You give them no time to replenish their expensive interceptor stocks, like Patriot missiles, or even do maintenance on their EW systems. You're trying to push their entire defensive network past its breaking point.
Let's get into the drones themselves. That 160 drone package, Russia must have changed the mix, knowing Ukraine was getting so good at shooting them down.
They absolutely did. So of the 160, maybe 90 were the standard Shahed variants. But the really interesting part is the other 70.
Okay.
Those included things like the Gerbera drone, but also a lot of sophisticated, dedicated decoy and simulator platforms.
Decoys. So this is where the economic warfare part comes in. How does a decoy achieve kinetic exhaustion?
It's cynically brilliant, really. The decoys are cheap. Sometimes they're just empty shells with a special radar enhancer, something called the Lundberg lens.
And what does that do?
It makes the small, cheap drone look, on radar, like a much bigger, much more dangerous threat, like a cruise missile.
So the goal isn't to do damage. It's to make Ukraine spend its money.
Mm.
You force them to fire a multi-million-dollar Patriot missile at a $1,000 decoy.
Exactly that. You trade your cheap asset for their priceless one. We saw it clearly back in May. In one attack, 41 out of 108 drones were confirmed decoys. They achieved nothing kinetically, but they drained precious defensive resources.
Well, it's not just decoys. The actual strike drones are adapting too, right? To get past Ukraine's electronic warfare.
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting. We're seeing two major adaptations. The first is reports of R-60 air-to-air missiles being integrated onto Shahed-type drones.
Wait, air-to-air missiles on a Shahed?
Yeah. It suggests a move towards drone air combat. The Flow Shahed could, in theory, shoot down a faster Ukrainian interceptor drone that's coming to ram it.
A drone that fights back. That completely changes the game. And what was the other adaptation?
It's how they're dealing with high EW zones, areas where radio signals are heavily jammed. We've observed drones using fiber optic stools.
Hang on, fiber optics? On a drone, you have to explain that.
It sounds like science fiction, I know. But imagine the drone is literally unspooling a physical, hardwired cable as it flies.
Like a wire-guided missile from the 80s?
Sort of, yes. It obviously limits its range, but for that final critical attack run, it makes the drone completely immune to radio jamming. It's an analog solution to a digital problem. It renders kilometers of advanced EW totally useless against that one drone.
Given all of that, the volume, the decoys, the fiber optics, how did Ukraine still manage to neutralize 108 of them? It can't just be missiles.
No, absolutely not. It's a multi-layered defense. That's why we call it an integrated air defense system. It was aviation, missile troops, EW units, and crucially, mobile fire groups all working together.
Let's talk about the non-kinetic part, the suppressed drones. How important is electronic warfare in all this?
It's critical. It's the only way to handle this kind of volume affordably. Suppression uses systems like the Ukrainian Lima to jam the drone satellite navigation.
So it gets lost.
It gets lost. It loses its target coordinates. It just drifts off course or crashes somewhere harmless. It's a kill that doesn't cost you $1 million missile.
But the real game changer here, the thing that counters the economic problem, is this idea of countermass.
This is the core of it. We're seeing what you could call a Jevons paradox in drone warfare. The easier and cheaper it gets to make attack drones, the more of them you use. The only answer to overwhelming mass is, well, more mass.
And the production numbers coming out of Ukraine are they're hard to believe.
They are. The Ukrainian Defense Procurement Agency is now delivering close to 950 interceptor drones per day.
950 a day.
Platforms like the Octopus and Sting, they are moving away from relying solely on traditional missile defense and are now manufacturing expendable aerial defenses on an industrial scale.
And the math just makes sense. Why use a Patriot missile on a $20,000 Shahed when you can send a $1,500 FPV drone to just ram into it?
It's the only sustainable way to fight this war without bankrupting your allies. And we're seeing support for this strategy. France is delivering these multi-layer FPV systems that act like a kind of flying drone minefield to protect cities.
And this all relies on continued Western support, though the nature of that support is changing, particularly from the U.S.
That's right. The aid is becoming more transactional. It's flowing through something called the PURL program.
Procurement for Ukraine's resilience and logistics. What does that actually mean for you, the listener?
It means Ukraine is actively buying modern, state-of-the-art U.S. weaponry. They're not just getting old surplus stock. So they pay a markup, yes, but they get quality control and standardization, which is vital.
Meanwhile, European partners like Germany and the EU are focusing more on direct financial aid for things like energy protection.
Exactly. A slightly different approach, but the same goal.
Okay, let's pull back to the strategic level. Why this attack? Why now? An escalation to 160 drones doesn't just happen.
No, it's almost certainly retaliation. Retaliation for Ukraine's own incredibly successful long-range strike operation, codenamed Operation Spiderweb.
This was the SBU operation deep inside Russia.
Yes. They used swarms of their own drones to hit 4 major Russian air bases, hundreds of miles from the front lines. And they weren't hitting just anything.
They were going after the bombers.
The heart of Russia's strategic strike capability, the Tu-95s, the Tu-22M3s, the Tu-160s, many of these planes are Soviet era. They are literally irreplaceable.
So what's the consequence of that? Forcing Russia to move its bombers farther away must create huge problems for them.
It's a massive logistical strain.
Yeah.
They've had to move surviving Tu-95s over 2,500 miles away up to the Alenia Air Base on the Arctic Peninsula.
Wow.
Think about what that does. It adds hours of flight time for any future missile launch, burns way more fuel, fatigues the crews. It dramatically slows down their operational tempo for cruise missile strikes.
So when you can't launch your big missiles as easily, you pivot to launching massive waves of cheap drones instead.
That seems to be the logic.
But we have to bring this back down to the human level. 47 of those drones got through. The humanitarian cost, especially in winter, must be immense.
It's devastating. Those strikes hit 23 locations. In Odessa alone, over 1 million households lost power or water. And you have to look at the cumulative damage. Since 2022, Ukraine has lost something like 70% of its pre-war electricity generation capacity.
70%.
Every one of these strikes pushes their critical infrastructure closer to a total collapse.
And all of this is happening against a really strange diplomatic backdrop. Just as these drones were in the air, President Zelensky was actually signaling he was ready for negotiations.
Yes, even mentioning holding presidential elections as part of a potential peace deal, which aligns with a U.S. proposed plan. It just shows a total disconnect.
Because at the same time, the Russian side is doing the opposite.
Completely. Putin and Gerasimov are doubling down on maximalist war aims, exaggerating their tiny battlefield gains. And the Russian Foreign Ministry publicly rejected a key part of any peace plan, calling the deployment of any Western troops for security guarantees unacceptable.
They only want a peace deal that leaves Ukraine vulnerable to another attack down the line.
That seems to be the signal, yes. And we can't ignore the broader context. Just days before this attack, Russian border guards briefly crossed into Estonian territory.
Into NATO territory.
Yes. It's small probe, but the ISW assesses that Russia has entered what they call Phase 0, the psychological prep phase for potential future conflict with NATO. It's all connected.
So as we wrap this up, what's the takeaway? Ukraine achieves this incredible defensive feat, knocking down 108 drones, but 47 still get through, and Russia just seems ready to send more.
We come back to that Jevons paradox. The 108 neutralizations are a testament to Ukrainian innovation. They've countered the economic problem by deciding to produce nearly 1,000 interceptor drones a day. But the final provocative thought is this. In a war of industrial attrition, how long can you sustainably produce 950 disposable interceptors a day to match an enemy's relentless escalation in volume and still have the resources to protect the energy grid you need to survive the winter? That economic balance is the real front line now.
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry.
We cover the economic warfare of decoy drones, the strategic impact of Operation Spiderweb, and the difficult reality of defending successfully while your infrastructure still suffers.
Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.